Today we're going to go over another mock draft and then putting those players in their landing spots and then drafting / ranking them for Dynasty fantasy football purposes. And this one's going to be controversial. There are some swings at the pinata at this draft, which is why I had to bring it to your guys' attention so we could look at the values of these players if they do go to these landing spots. Some of them are more than likely not going to happen, but we're still going to do it anyway. And we're going back to the 33rd team here and looking at their mock draft here and just reading the tea leaves, seeing what they got. And here it is. We've covered them before on a previous mock. Good site to look at if you want to check them out. Also have some good tools for fantasy football. But let's move on down here. The first player off the board here is Bryce Young to the Houston Texans. Nothing new about that. We're seeing this happen all the time. The thing is, they're running through coaches quicker than we run through sodas or beers on a Saturday night. So this is going to be an interesting landing spot. Bryce Young's a good quarterback. He's a very good prospect. Got a good mental process in him. But the thing about him, he's also got his deficits as well. Not a Trevor Lawrence, not a Justin Fields type of prospect. So this is going to be an interesting case to look at throughout the season. But let's move on to the next pick here and see what we got with them. We got CJ Stroud going to the Seattle Seahawks. Just in case they get sick of Geno Smith or Geno Smith wants a lot of money, they may want to get one of these quarterbacks. Stroud to Seattle, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker. You got some pieces at play for him. Will Seattle go quarterback or will they go defense and keep it going or go at another position? Who knows? I've seen some people comment on the last draft that went quarterback for Seattle. They weren't feeling it. They may not be feeling it with this one. But that's what's going on with this draft. And he's got some pieces at play for him to work with. So there it is. Will Levis to the Colts at 5. We've seen Levis go to the Colts in a few of these mocks. And I like that he'll have Jonathan Taylor, have Michael Pittman. They've been adding wide receivers. They got Alec Pierce last year. Got a deep threat. They got some speed there as well. They're indoors. This could be a good spot for him. I like that. I like that he'll have a good running back to take some load off of him. How quick will he be thrown to the fire? Because they don't really have much else there. So that's something you want to look at here in Indy. But a good spot nonetheless. You can't really get much better this year when you're talking about teams that are looking for a quarterback. Moving down here to the next one. Next skilled player coming off the boards. What we're going to be looking at. Quentin Johnson going to the Titans. We've seen him mocked there a few times before, but they already got this asset, really, with Treylon Burks, another big wide receiver with speed. They could be a tandem. We can get Towers running down the field. That could happen. We've seen this before with other NFL teams. We really need them to push up the pace in the passing game for this to happen because both players will need to be fantasy relevant. Both players have high draft capital. They spend a lot at this wide receiver position, but they kind of need to as well. Derrick Henry's not going to be there forever. Derrick Henry's not going to be carrying the load forever. So there will be a transition period sometime, but who knows? But him going to Titans isn't really initial sexy look for fantasy. Could be long term. It will get you yards after the catch. He's a bigger guy. There is some opportunities for him to do some things here. He's also a very talented wide receiver prospect, but the landing spot isn't the best for him. Let's move on down here. Going to the next pick, Anthony Richardson to the Washington Commanders. This is a new one. This is going to spark some controversy, but really think about this team here. Really sad at the quarterback position. Sam Howell there throwing some darts last week. But who knows? Who knows? They get in draft. Richardson's here at 14. A little bit higher draft capital. I think we see him go 9 in some spots. But 14 years not too bad. And here he's got some pieces, though. We got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. We got some running backs there. We got some pieces for him. So this is a good spot for him. I could see him really jumping some guys here in Dynasty value. I think this could be a sneaky play. Will this happen? I don't know. The Commanders are a sneaky team to just do whatever in the draft. Lately, they've had some top-tier picks at the top-tier part of the draft. But here at 14, this could be a sneaky thing for us to see. Move down here in the draft. Green Bay drafting Jordan Addison, wide receiver from USC. They've been drafting Michael Mayer in a lot of drafts. A lot of these mock drafts have Mayer going here, but this makes a lot more sense. Creates a lot of separation, different from some of the other wide receivers on the roster. The young guys they just drafted here. He can work the short to intermediate parts of the field, create separation, rack up targets and catches. This could be a good young talent to pair with Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs. This could be an interesting tandem here as they build this wide receiver unit for Aaron Rodgers and possibly the next quarterback that we see in Green Bay. Moving down here to our next guy coming off the board. Next wide receiver getting drafted is Jalen Hyatt to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't really like this spot for him because I don't know how long Tom Brady's going to be there. He could be there next 5-10 years for all I know. Probably not likely. Maybe another couple. Who knows? But he does push it downfield. There is a lot of volume. This guy gets downfield. He will command air yards if he's seeing snaps. That's one thing I like about him in fantasy. Mike Evans isn't going to be there forever as well. Older wide receivers, 29, 30 years old. So we're going to see him get some opportunities early in his career as long as he transitions to an NFL game. So there will be opportunity here. Will it be with a new quarterback or will it be with Tom Brady for a bit? That will be the question. This one's not going to happen. I don't see Bijan Robinson falling this far all the way to 23 to the New York Giants. I think he's going to get snatched up. But the swap out from Barkley to Robinson is an interesting scenario. If I'm the Giants, I'll try to stick it out with Barkley if I can. Contracts are contracts with these running backs when they're replaceable. Bijan going to the Giants. Interesting scenario. It's not going to impact his dynasty value. He's locked and loaded being an expensive player. If you want to pay the piper for it, that is going to be the question. I think he can be productive with this team like Barkley can be, but we just have to wait and see how the market's going to evaluate him as well in rookie drafts, but I don't see him ever moving from the 101. Moving down here to 25 overall, the Chargers, and another wide receiver to them like we've been seeing in a lot of mock drafts, Josh Downs. I think this is a great fit. This guy can create separation, work the short to intermediate parts of the field, and get downfield a little bit. Can be a replacement for Keenan Allen here soon because he is a savvy route runner. Create separation with that savviness. Good short area quickness. I think this is a good spot for him and a good spot for his fantasy value as well. Moving on down here, Jahmyr Gibbs to the Cowboys. I think this is second or third mock I've seen him fall to the Cowboys here at 28. I look for him to get drafted in the first round, and if it doesn't, it's going to be early second round. I look for him to get good draft capital. He's better than what a lot of people are thinking of right now. He's been touted in college football as one of the best running back prospects for a while. Even when he was at Georgia Tech, I think this is going to be a good spot for him in Dallas because you got Tony Pollard there in free agency. Of course, Zeke's old and slow right now, not looking like he was like 5 years ago. Gibbs could be an upgrade there, and that might be something they want to look at, but I also see this team going defense, offensive line. Really depends on what's on the board at this late in the draft, but at 28, there's really going to be a drop-off in talent when you're looking at those positions. So they may want to go Gibbs, but really 28, they may be drafting a little sooner than that as well. Anyways, moving down though, we see Michael Mayer coming off the board to the Broncos. I think this is the second mock where we see him going to the Broncos, which is very interesting here. Interesting situation. I think this is good from an NFL standpoint. You get a tight end that can block and run some routes. But from a fantasy football scenario here with Greg Dulcich there, not enough targets to go around. And also, from a first-round early pick standpoint, that tight end position's so fragile, you really got to start going gangbusters. And you know what? I'd rather pay up for a veteran at that price point. I'd rather just pay up, pay another first on top of it, give me a stud tight end if I had to do that. But Greg Dulcich and him there would be good for the Broncos. Fantasy-wise, would be a little bit of a conundrum as this team tries to figure out its identity considering what we saw this year. Moving down to the next pick here, Dalton Kincaid to the Chiefs. This might be a head scratcher to some, but Kincaid led tight ends and targets multiple weeks this year in college, and he was a proven pass catcher. Travis Kelce will be 34 years old like they state here, so I could see the Chiefs making a pick like this. And to your rebuttal, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went in the late first round as well. Not saying it's the best thing, but getting another tight end here to help the passing offense, to help get you ready for the transition from Kelsey, if that ever happens, is something you may want to look at. But again, a tight end prospect this high is something you may not want to do as well. But I can also see why they would want to do that. And then from a fantasy football scenario, all players to the Chiefs increase in value instantly. It is money printer go burn that offense. And if a player goes to the Chiefs, they will see a bump in value. And I think that's it for the draft. No second round here. So let's move on to the tier maker. Let's start ranking these players. So stud tier here. Same guy as always. You know it. Bijan Robinson to the Giants. And I don't care if he goes to the NFL Europe, the CFL, plays high school another year or so. He is going to be in tier S. He is marked there. I don't care if it's super flex. I don't care if it's 1 QB. I don't care if it's 3 QB. He is there. Now tier A, it gets interesting with this draft, and I love how interesting it is. So we got Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis in a quarterback tier. And I'm throwing Anthony Richardson up here because I love the landing spot, and with his rushing ability, he should be marked up with these guys almost automatically. However, he's been falling in some drafts. If you're in the 20s, there's a little bit more risk there. So I can see him falling around this range in those drafts. But here, 14 draft capital, 14 player overall. That competes well. Rushing ability, you got 3 wide receivers there. You got a couple running backs already. That's a good start. That's a very good start. The question mark here is Bryce Young. And we should have had these questions before, prior to these last few weeks. But he is the first player off the board. That gives him a long leash. But this offense, not even the offense. I'm talking about like the staff in general. I'm talking about head coaches. I'm talking about the ownership. There's a lot of question marks here. What's going to happen long term? So I like all these guys. I think Richardson might even be up higher than Stroud even, just with what he's got. Stroud's got some good pieces. Levis got some good pieces. So these guys are hashing out good in their landing spots. Bryce Young's a little bit of a question mark. These guys here, they got some good pieces to their game. But there's another player I want to add here. Jahmyr Gibbs. And I get it, he fell to the latter part of the first round. But a first-round running back is a first-round running back. And he's going to the Cowboys. They like to push it to the running backs. They love giving their running backs volume. Definitely ahead of Levis. And usually in most Dynasty mocks, he is after the 2 QBs. I think Richardson deserves a bump up. So Gibbs right here or here. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. And then Richardson can also be here or here or here. This is a tier, remember. But Gibbs here or here. I don't see him above the QB2 or QB1. Just super flex value-wise. But Richardson's looking good in this spot with the draft capital, with pieces at play. How long will it take for him to get the starting role? And can he transition to the game? But the value is going to be there. It's going to escalate. Tier B is going to be fun. Tier B is hilarious because I got something to share with you guys. But let me get started with this tier real quick. Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, Josh Downs. We're missing a guy. We're missing a guy. And it is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He did not go in the first round of this mock draft. I hope someone called this out in the comments before we got here, because I guarantee someone did. But he did not get drafted in the first round of this mock. I don't know if the drafter forgot. I don't know if they hate him. I don't know. I don't have the context. But in this alternate reality, he's not here. He's not here. So we got these players to look at. And from what I'm gathering here is Jordan Addison's in a prime spot. I have him as the safest wide receiver in the draft. I think Quentin Johnston has the most upside, but he's also in a scary spot. Josh Downs is a solid wide receiver, and he went to the best landing spot in the draft. So I bumped him up a bit. In this tier, I have these guys close together, and honestly, if I was drafting a ton of teams, which I will be, and if I'm in their range, I am going to diversify my portfolio, and it's going to be split pretty much 3 ways between those guys. So take that information with how you want it. But I do like all 3 of these wide receivers. Johnston, talent. Addison, safety net and good situation. Josh Downs, sneaky talent, very good talent, should be up there, and then grandioso situation. Now, Tier C, Jalen Hyatt and Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid gets the Chiefs bump. He gets the Chiefs bump. Still tight end, but has some good receiving numbers from this year. One of the top targeted tight ends in college football last year. Probably the top target. I have to re-look that up. Jalen Hyatt, though, deep threat, air yards, could be marked up here. I can put him up here. I want to. The thing is, I don't know how long Tom Brady's going to be there, and I don't have him regarded as a Quentin Johnson-esque talent, but I do have him as a decent air yards guy, and I love air yards from a week-to-week standpoint. With Brady, if he's on the field seeing considerable snaps with Brady, getting those targets, he is going to be valuable, especially during that time, because Brady, with him at Tampa Bay, they've been pushing it downfield, and they've been passing it a lot. A lot of pass attempts, tops in the league, so volume will be there as long as he's seeing routes. Tier C is not a slouch tier. However, there will be running backs mixed into Tier A and B and C here if you throw in that second and third round. Tier D is Michael Mayer. I don't hate Michael Mayer that much. I think this is a great pick for the Broncos. For a football standpoint, there's probably some other options they want to go with, though. That's on the board. But just looking at this in a vacuum, it's okay from a football standpoint. From a fantasy football standpoint, the target distribution is going to be impactful. Greg Dulcich's going to be there running routes. They'll probably keep Mayer in line a little bit more, but he could be running routes as well. Tight end position as well is not as valuable in fantasy as what you would hope to be. That being said, I'm always going to bump the tight end down in value because from a week-to-week standpoint, the tight end 8 is not far off from the tight end 25. So why am I going to pump up tight ends in the first round of rookie drafts when I can just pull strings off the waiver wire with them throughout the season, or get some guys cheap off trades and really not be far away from the guys I paid up a little bit for? There's always a guy there in the offseason that you can get for cheaper than expected that will give you competitive production for the position. So I'm not really looking at paying up at the tight end spot here in rookie drafts. Second round, third round, I'm good, but I'm not doing that. In Dalton Kincaid's case, he's getting the Chiefs bump due to the value, but there's going to be running backs ahead of him. Jalen Hyatt's ahead of him by a smidge, and there'll probably be another wide receiver or two ahead of him as well. That's just how the tight end position plays out. But this is what I'm seeing from this list here. Something different, something new. Jackson Smith and Jigba's not in here. Where he'd be ranked? Well, he'd probably be somewhere in the middle of the list, maybe a little bit lower than usual, but I wouldn't cast them to the Wolves right now. He'd probably be drafted in the second round of this mock if they had a second round. I would hope so, unless he got forgotten about. Maybe he did. Maybe they forgot about him. I don't know. I'm not that dude. I don't know that dude, but he did not get drafted in the first round. I tried hitting Control F, typing his name, did not show up. I typed his name, I typed Smith, I did everything, did not come up. So he did not get drafted in this mock draft. I want to hear your comments about that below. But make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. It's only going to help you going forward. Getting you ready for those rookie drafts, building your dynasty teams, setting lineups in season, everything else. Well, thank you for watching.